Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r// Nuclear Revenge. In today's episode, I put my first job out of business, after 8 years working there. He scoffed at me, so I got him fired and sent back to his country. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I put my first job out of business, after 8 years working there. Okay, so I live in a relatively small city in North Carolina, and started working at the young age of 14, as a dishwasher, soon working my way up through the restaurant over 2 years. Settle in because this is a long one, and I hope you all enjoy it. The original owner of the restaurant/bar, a 50-plus-year-old woman, had grown interest in selling the restaurant, after 10 years of great reviews, and honestly it became the best place in town to go to. A younger male walked in one day through the kitchen door. In the start I thought he was a new employee. Finding out later that night he was the one interested in buying the restaurant, and the sale went smoothly. Fast forward a year, and the new owner, let's call him Herb, denied the only time I had ever asked for a raise. The $7.50 an hour I started on was not a living wage. He told me I didn't work hard enough, when I had gone as far as to wait on tables and cook, as well as many of the cleanup, maintenance, on top of my job of being their dishwasher. Thankfully for me at the time, my manager, who had listened through the office door, called him out on the bullsh*. She got me my raise. Nonetheless, a few months into it, Herb let several coolers, which held meat, break down and refused to fix them or get a new one. My nice manager couldn't take getting the backlash of always being blamed for things breaking down. Herb's the owner, it was his money, he had to approve anything we did. So on the night we celebrated her 10-year anniversary of working there, she ate the cake my sister and I made her. Then also proceeded to quit on the spot right after. The responsibility of management fell onto my sister, and she was forced to take the promotion with no raise or anything. She managed for 9 months, only to feel unheard. For any issue she brought up with equipment or workers, she would always be told no, we cannot do that, and after she had had enough trying to convince him on repairs, we were left without a manager for a period of time, and he was forced to drive the 3 hours to come and manage the restaurant himself. A few weeks after, a new manager was hired, and another man was hired to be my help in the kitchen, and me being the head cook at this point in time, I taught him the ups and downs of the kitchen, and this man, he was kind and caring at first. But he kissed us so much that I was overlooked for the kitchen manager position. The guy I loved to watch football with in the kitchen on my phone, using my speaker on the slow Sundays, changed into a brutal asshat. He would cuss at the waitresses, and try to physically fight me on the daily. He and I were there to open the kitchen alone, and would be joined by waitstaff an hour later. He went as far as to buck up to try to fight one of the waitresses one day. When she mentioned she had heard everything he said to me before she walked in, I am done with your sh*t, you can either apologize or you can get out. OP has been here a lot longer than you, and you were trained by him, and yet you think you can disrespect him. Hell no. As the man raised his hand to try to smack her, I punched him in his face and in return got slammed into the already broken coolers. You do not hit a woman, ever. Fast forward a few months later, and after everyone sees this side of him, they realize I wasn't playing about him being a grade A**ck. Many of us had tried to tell Herb about his actions, but were met with it can't be that bad, he's so nice. Finally, after not being heard or listened to for so long, I began planning how to quit. I had it all planned out, and when we had the meeting, I walked in a suit, already having found a place with, at that time, my fiancée, and a new job far from home. Everyone knew I was overdressed, and had questions, and I filled them in on the walkout plan, yet the mean manager was nowhere in sight. After enjoying the meeting and being called on for my opinions on how to boost sales and better the restaurant, I looked at Herb and answered sarcastically, "Oh me? Now you want to hear what I have to say?" Getting in a serious tone now, I stand up and told him why would I help a business, much less the owner of this business, better themselves when I have been blown off for months. Anything I had to tell you, I was bullied for months, and when I mentioned it, I was brushed off. have a great King Day Herb, because you quite literally don't have a cook now. Today is moving day, and I'm moving over 4 hours away, to a better job, one with an owner who will listen and respect their workers, and not force us to try and cook green, slimy chicken past its expiration date. I quit. He begged for me to stay because he had finally fired the mean manager. He said, "Is there any possible way I can get you to stay?" I looked at him and repeated the words he always told us when we mentioned equipment needed repaired or replaced, in his exact customer support accent. "No, we can't do that." As I walked out, he followed, begging me to stay, and said he finally did what was needed of him. I simply told him too little, way too late, and proceeded to walk out, and what followed was all the co-workers on my side stood up and left too. This is not where it ends. He had purposefully not given me my W-2 forms for taxes, and after a few days of harassing him for my tax papers, I got them. Then, I received a letter from the IRS, saying there was a problem with my tax forms, therefore I couldn't receive my tax refund. Calling up the IRS, I found he had not submitted any of the forms he was supposed to as our employer, and when contacting him to rectify the situation, he proceeded to say, "I don't recall employing any of you this year. After all, you all left with no reason or right." Little did he know I record every conversation on my phone, and I reported him to the IRS. Attached to the email, I sent in the voice recording in an MP3 format, and I also sent in photocopies of my check stubs and copies of my W-2s, along with informing my coworkers having issues with their taxes to do the same. Herb has since lost his business license, his wife left him, and took their kids, after finding out about his fraud. Herb is now facing upwards to 60 years in prison now for multiple counts of tax fraud. It turns out we were not the only business he owned, and refused to pay taxes, or file the correct tax forms when needed. He had withheld the safety precaution pay during COVID, and used all of it to fix the restaurant. He ked up, and I get to sit back happily typing this with a smile, knowing this dickhead got what was coming to him. For all of you wondering whether I ever got my taxes and my money, yes, I finally did as of yesterday. Thanks for listening to my life story, guys. He scoffed at me, so I got him fired and sent back to his country. So let me preface this by saying I do feel somewhat bad about the events that transpired, but it would be eating my conscience to say I didn't do it on purpose, because I did. I started my first full-time job when I was 20, fresh off college and ready to take on the world. I resided in a Middle Eastern country, where people got brought in frequently by employers, and one mistake could cost them everything. I was outside this, because I was a resident of the place despite not being from there. Anyways, when I first started, I got along very well with my coworker despite the fact that he came off as a lot of bad things for me. We tried hanging out, but the more I got to know him, the more disgusted I became. He was sexist, a purist of his religion where he believes execution of certain people should be allowed, and he was extremely homophobic. But nonetheless, I tried making friends with him, because I was open to anything. In our office, we have a portable Wi-Fi that he took with him every day, free internet, and I never commented on this because I have my own, I can afford it, and so can he. More on this later. The closer I got to him, the more he opened up, but in the worst ways. He would send me lewd images while we're in the office of women, talk about drug use, and sometimes disappear from work for hours on end while I manned the office. Like I said, I was 20, I was still young and naive, and I tried my best to seem calm and friendly. I wanted to make an impression. This man, however, was the opposite. He was several years older than me, and acted like he was above me through every step. But I ignored it because I wanted to be civil. Sometimes I would help him with his work until eventually his work became mine. He would just expect me to do it, without even lending a hand. I didn't say anything, I just did it. His missing from the office became more frequent. Sometimes he would only be at work for a measly 2 hours out of 9 hours, popping in and out, and the office manager is too chicken *T to say anything to the general manager. Then there's the lateness, where I would come in on time every day, and he'd come an hour late. Still, I kept my mouth shut. It escalated to him adjusting attendance records, so it seems like he's not absent, even though his absences were frequent. Unfortunately, he was put in charge of that too. I remained quiet throughout all of this, remained civil until finally I spoke to the general manager about pursuing a different line of work. I was always into graphic design, and they needed to get some work done, so I offered to do it. But during this time, I couldn't afford much things anymore because I had to help pay for bills for my parents, so I usually just walked to work back and forth every day and limited my eating to once a day, meaning the Wi-Fi was no longer something I could afford. So, as an agreement, I could take the office Wi-Fi with me and work on designs from home. However, my co-worker didn't agree to this, and pretty much attacked me with a barrage of insults. He scoffed at the fact that I needed the Wi-Fi to do design work and said I was a joke. I've suppressed majority of what the conversation held, but it went something like this. Me, I just need it tonight, you can have the Wi-Fi tomorrow. Him, why? It's not yours. Me, I need to do some design work. Him, yeah, me too. I need to do that too. So, leave it here. I couldn't remember much of what else he said, but there was a scoff after he said that. And he made fun that my design's S**kid, and that I should just stop while I'm ahead. My blood boiled, and I reached a point of no return. I immediately phoned the office manager and talked about the situation, and how if I don't get the Wi-Fi, I'll complain to the general manager, who did in fact give me his blessing, unlike this turd. He immediately called my coworker and told him to give me the Wi-Fi, which he did, and that was that. Except, I'm a petty person, and I'm not about to let some hole get off with a slap on the wrist. The next day, I went to the head office and had a meeting with the general manager. I spoke to him about all the misconducts this guy had, how he's always late, never in the office, changes his absences, steals money sometimes, etc. I spilled my heart out on all his wrongdoings, showing the messages and photos I was sent during shift that I never asked for, and how I'm doing all of his work. It escalated to a point where he got brought into the main office for a meeting, where I proceeded to berate him in front of the manager, and he could only try to defend himself, but I was prepared. It turns out the office manager never even spoke to the general manager about his misconduct. Afterwards, he was brought back to the office having been yelled at by both my and the general manager. And I could say that's where it ends, except it's not. After he left, the general manager realized if I had been doing all the work, then why didn't I say anything? I responded that I was simply there to work and to help. However, with what just happened, and the fact that this guy was getting paid more than me, I've decided that if he's here, then I won't be staying in the company. I gave him a choice, me or this guy. The answer was obvious, because by the next day, he was handed a termination letter, and another letter that states he's been booked a ticket, and he has to head back to his home country within a month, and he's barred from entering the country for several years due to his public misconduct that was reported by a certain someone to the local authorities. I could say that's the end, but okay, this is the last one, I swear. See, he had a girlfriend back home, a fiancée more like, whom he has been cheating on. Funny enough, he added me on Facebook when we first met, and she proceeded to add me too, because he talks about me to her. Well, our messages wasn't just inappropriate, it showed details of him cheating on her, with me questioning him if that's a good idea. Every screenshot, sent. All the photos of the women he's been with, sent. She was livid, and I kept apologizing for keeping her in the dark, but that I thought she deserved to know at least. I haven't spoken to her since, but judging from the fact that her Facebook status no longer states she's engaged to him, is enough of a confirmation. I sent him one last thing before blocking him on every social media we've been connected in. You deserve this, sh*Theod. It's been several months since then, and I'm thriving at work. I got a raise, I have better coworkers, and I'm getting a promotion. As for him, well, he's out there somewhere in the world, who knows, and who cares, right? We're no longer in the same country, so whatever else happens to him no longer phases me. Though, he did once send me a photo of his fake Italian ID, because he was planning on illegally migrating there next year. I'm on the fence if I should send it to the authorities in Italy or not, just as a precaution, I might considering migrating there at some point.